What up, world? This is the Millennial Community bringing you the Knockin on 30 podcast. We got Brianna, Delyn, Dennis, and myself, Tony. What's good, everybody?
What's going on, man?
What's going on?
What's up? What's up?
We good? We here for another round?
Yeah.
Another round.
Fresh off the weekend.
Fresh off the weekend. Yeah, let's jump right into it then, because that's what I wanted to talk about real quick. It's the weekend.
Yeah. Oh, Lord.
So we got together this weekend, and we
did.
tested out a brunch spot, Snooze.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of talk about it.
I'm a little underwhelmed.
Wow, really?
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was good, but I just didn't think it was like worth the people who say they wait like 2 hours.
So wait, did we say where we went?
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Where did we go?
we went to Snooze.
Yeah.
went to Snooze.
So,
The Galleria location.
yeah, the Galleria
wow.
location.
Shout
Let's
them
be
out
very
there.
specific, because when I told my coworkers, they were like, "Oh, the one on Montrose." I'm like, "No."
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking.
No. But it was. I agree with Brianna. It was kind of like, and I would consider myself a foodie to a certain extent. Like,
All
I do
millennials
enjoy.
are. Most millennials
Yeah,
are.
like I definitely enjoy tasting Houston, because we have a lot to offer. But yeah, it was a lot on the menu, and as millennials, when you think about brunch, we like mimosa. So I couldn't just order a mimosa. It's like, I want a mimosa. Sir, which one? I'm like, why do I have 8 to choose from? Which was kind of like kid in the candy store. But then when that turned into the food options too, and I'm like, I don't even know what I want. Yeah.
Well, I mean, as far as the mimosa goes, I did have the same mimosa that you guys had.
Right.
The
And the
ladies.
ladies had. I thought I was,
It was good to me.
It was good.
it was
like-
horrible.
It was like a Paloma.
I had to send it right back.
Paloma mimosa.
It was
So
horrible.
had
With
some
a tequila.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
taste any of that. All I tasted was
It was the
disgust.
grapefruit.
I don't. Yeah, maybe it was the grapefruit. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I
It
think
looked
it was
pretty
the
though.
elderflower, because it has like a specific taste.
I
It
didn't
looked
taste
pretty,
it. I
though.
just tasted the
It
grapefruit.
looked pretty though.
Look, I had to stick with what I knew. It was too many options.
And I went with you, and it was a great decision. You know what?
Keeping it simple. Huh?
Another great decision was the food that I got. I did get the sweet potato pancake, and I can't lie to y'all, it was on point. It was
My
pretty
shrimp and
delicious.
grits were really good.
The
they
ones
were
you
a
left?
little
The
greasy.
ones you left.
The
The
ones
ones
I
you
left.
The ones you
Unfortunately, on the table. But they were really tasty. I was like ready to eat that when I got home, like later in the day. And then I got on 59.
and
And that was
a wrap.
that.
My food was good. It was just, I mean, the hype behind it, it just wasn't, it didn't live up to the hype.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be like knock your socks off. It was pretty average.
Because I heard about the wait. So
Right.
you would, imagine kind of like Breakfast Club, right? Which, I mean, not to compare, but if
I
we're
mean, I don't
being
even like
honest,
You
Breakfast
can't
Club.
compare. Wait.
You
That's a
must
whole
like
nother-
you must just like home cooked food
Right.
or something.
No, I just like really like, it just has to be good. Like Breakfast Club to me is like salty. It's like too,
So what's
Too-
good
Yeah,
what's good? Like Jupiter Pizza.
for brunch?
Yeah, no, they have it's like a brunch thing, but it's just called Jupiter Pizza and Waffle Company.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to
yeah.
try it.
Yeah, I've definitely
That's
heard
really
about
good.
Yeah.
I don't like Max's. I don't like a lot of stuff.
You don't
will
like
agree
brunch.
there.
I
will
love
agree
no,
there.
I love
Kinda what it
brunch.
comes down
I love
that.
that's
Either
my
you don't like
favorite.
brunch or you don't like
I
Houston.
had
I don't know.
Grand Lux brunches was really good.
Grand Lux, yeah.
They got a good brunch.
Their food is good though.
Yeah, but their brunch is really good. They had a crab cake omelet that was,
And I think it's only on Saturday,
only
Sunday.
on Saturday
Yeah.
and Sunday.
How'd you feel about the
Their
service though?
The
We talking about
service-
the whole,
So, okay, when we were sitting there waiting for the food, I was just kind of like, all right, like, are they really going to bring the food out, or my stomach going to keep on growling? So it was like that tipping point where you've been too long waiting on your food, and then they're like, hey, I got your meal out. So
Yeah.
I think it was just like we had already had so much, not saying so much to drink, but I didn't even really matter after that.
I agree with that. It was like we were drinking and talking, and then it was like, wait, I think
I
it's-
forgot we ordered
Supposed
food.
It's
to
kind
eat.
of been a little minute since we got our
and
food.
then they mess your food up with the
Yeah.
brown stuff,
yes,
The brown
and
aka bacon.
AKA the swine.
I don't eat that.
He
I
said,
don't
"What
eat
is this?"
that. Take
He
it
said,
back.
"What is this
Back.
brown stuff?"
Yeah, because it low key looked like it was mushrooms, because you know how like bacon has a little fat on it. So I'm looking, I'm like, what is this in my?
It was probably delicious. I don't understand
Right,
why
I mean-
you're so
Disgusting.
off
Disgusting.
bacon.
Hey man, I'm
I
going on
feel
2
you.
years of no
Hey.
swine. So.
Amen, brother.
Do your
Amen.
thing, brother.
Yeah.
Do your thing.
Look, the rest of us will enjoy.
Enjoy.
Man.
Let me know how that go.
I feel like you know, it would have been delicious, but I do feel you. You know, everybody has their
Yeah.
choice. He said no scallions either. Send this
Right,
back, no
right.
scallions.
No scallion with this green stuff.
I just had to let her know, man. I have very special requirements when it comes to how I enjoy my food.
But it was 2 out of 4.
At least you didn't have notes.
Yeah.
Right.
At
This
least you
girl
didn't
put
have
out
right.
notes to
When
order her food.
When you're a vegetarian, you gotta have you gotta be specific. You gotta let them know this is what I don't want. This is exactly what I want. And before I forget, let me let you know.
She literally pulled out her iPhone notes.
She did.
It was
said,
like,
"Hold
one
on."
moment.
Yeah. So that wasn't millennial. I don't know
Yeah.
what was. So
Hey.
is it millennial approved or snooze? Is we giving it thumbs up?
Because we're 2 out of 4.
I
It's
feel like
half
it
and
wasn't
half.
bad. It just wasn't.
Yeah.
So it's
Y'all
no.
didn't
like
and
it. I
we
didn't say
good
no.
with
Yeah,
it?
Yeah,
it's okay.
I'm kind of like
I would go back. I would probably have to get something else though.
yeah.
I mean, I was satisfied.
2 out of 4.
So
Yeah.
satisfied
2 out
you
of 4.
left your food.
2 out of 4.
Listen, that was probably because of the drinks. I was
So then the drinks were satisfied.
so
we
then
can all agree that the drinks, after.
after you
After.
switched yours out.
Yeah. Thank God. You know how you get something, you're like, I'm just gonna power through.
Mhm.
I was like, nah, I
You
can't.
can't make it.
Excuse me, man. But anyway, so all right, well, maybe next time we'll get a better review of
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Right.
I guess we'll try again. So anyway, all right. So today's main topic that we're talking about is really life in the workplace. But I think before we get into that, somebody has something to say.
Man, hold up, wait a minute. Man. So the topic of the day, man, it's this whole double texting thing. I just, for whatever reason, it was the way that it was introduced to me was I don't send a double text. So short story, I was a school teacher for 2 years. And when my kids got to talking about this, I was like, what is a double text? Sorry, y'all. Y'all know I got an old soul. So I'm just going to go in because this whole double texting thing, first of all, whoever created this to actually be a word and say, oh, if you do this, it's considered a double text. If I got something to say and I'm trying to get in touch with you, I will text you to say, hey, you're not available for me to call you, so you're going to get these text messages until you respond. And yes, although some people see a difference between the context of it and the actual time that you text back. So if the context is very important, I will continue to text you until you respond, especially if you're in an environment where I can't pick up the phone and call you, I can't drive and see you, then this is my only means of communication. And I understand the context. Sometimes it can be very important and you want that answer right then, but realize that there's a correlation, in my opinion, between context and time. So if the context is important, the time doesn't matter. However, if it is just a random text message like a good morning text that we all like to receive sometimes,
How he look
you know how I looked at y'all. So you get that good morning text and then you don't get nothing back and then you want to send something else. It's like, all right, hold on, man. I ain't even woke up yet. So realize your context is just to say good morning. But if your context is something that's important, dog, text me back. Text me back because you're not only going to get a double text, but you keep doing the math and you're going to get a whole lot more after that. But
Shots fired.
no, yes, it is shots fired because there are some people that like to have conversations with themselves where you send that message and then 2 minutes later you send it another message. And when I finally look at my phone and I got 16 messages, you've had a whole conversation with yourself. Now we're not talking about double text no more. We may be talking about some symptoms a little bit beyond this whole double text statement. And not to mention that some people say 5 to 30 minutes is a nice time for you to actually respond back. It depends on what I'm doing. And let's go back to point number one. It depends on the context. So double texting, I get it. Some people do it. There's a reason to why some people do it. It's an anxiety thing, or I just need my answer when I need my answer. So, hey, depending on who you texting, be careful with it. But I will say, if it is important, you're not only going to get the double, but you're going to get the triple. And the thing that really grinds my gears, that is very much of a side conversation to this whole double text thing, is a double email at work.
Oh God.
Ooh.
If you send me an event request or a calendar invite or however you want to label it, and I accept it, and I accept and respond to where I know that you got the fact that I'm coming, and then 2 minutes before the meeting, you send me an email saying, hey, are you coming to the meeting? that's just like double texting. Don't double email me. Like, I'm at work just like you at work. And if I'm looking at my calendar and I know I'm supposed to be there, I'm going to be there, dog. So I don't understand. Like, that grinds my gears. Do not text me like that.
I feel
All
you.
right.
I feel you. Bravo, bravo, bro. Let's give Dennis a round of applause because I mean, brother, you brought that home.
And we know
And
not
we-
to do that.
Ever,
sorry.
ever.
Don't
double
with
calendar.
email.
Not in
Hey,
a
Come
group
on.
You
chat,
can't
not
double
in a
nothing.
single chat. Don't
Nah,
ever.
I'm at work.
You'll
Man,
get to it when you get
come
to
You know
watch
what
my
you should
desk.
do then? You should put your read receipts on your phone, maybe, because maybe that way people will know I read it.
No,
I
that is
acknowledged
going
it.
to make me more inclined to text you because now I know that you've seen it and,
See?
you
And you're
did
ignoring
respond.
me.
I'm
So
sorry.
So now I
tried
must go
to-
crazy.
You know,
You're
I
ignoring me.
I was actually that's what grinds my gears though in workplaces when people put their read receipts on and they try to make sure that I acknowledge that I read their email. I purposefully will hit no.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even gonna respond to your read receipt because that's like I feel like that's like a parenting thing.
Why you
Like
stalking me?
don't ask me if I read your email. Like you sent it.
Yeah. So
You need to
yeah,
talk
I
to
read it.
Outlook.
Yeah.
If you did, if you asking me, like I don't know. That just
You
grinds
really
my
do.
gears.
But, how do we feel about millennials in the workplace? Like, how do we feel about when we go to work? Like, what attracts us to working? How do we feel like we should be managed? What are we looking for?
It's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question, and I think a lot of what we hear is that we're looking to make an impact.
Oh, yeah.
That's open to interpretation on what that definition is on making that impact, but statistically said, 2 to 3 years is about the longest that most millennials are going to stay on the job unless they feel like they're making an impact.
Yeah.
So I guess just to kind of define quickly, do we feel the same as millennials? Do we feel like we make an impact, or what would that definition look like for us?
I agree. I think that making an impact like heavily weighs on where I work. My current job, we work with senior citizens and we provide psychiatric services. And so time and time again, we will go out and volunteer. So we'll put on, like a senior prom we did a few months ago and taking them to the grocery store. So that's how I get to see my impact through my work.
Gotcha.
Do you ever feel like maybe people have been at a job too long and they've lost their passion for that job and then that kind of impacts the entire workplace? Like, does that ever occur to you guys in any of y'all's workspace? I know it has for me before.
Yeah, complacency and the monotonous of just going to work, I think it has a really heavy impact on someone's performance.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know if I see that as much with us, like as
I think that's the
millennials.
older generation.
Oh.
So I'm sorry to
Uh-oh.
put that out
You
there.
need a
But
baby boomer alarm.
A little.
But no, I just feel like for millennials, we have other avenues that if we're not getting, passion from our job, we can have that other outlet outside of work to
Or we
go ahead
leave.
and fulfill that.
Yeah. And I also think too that it kind of depends on how long a person has been with a company, because this isn't to put like a generational thing on it and say it's only boomers, only X's that are staying on very long, jobs for a very long time. But if I've got to a job and I've been excelling there, maybe I want to stay.
Right.
Maybe this is the career path that I chose and the best company for what it is I'm trying to do. So, I mean, I don't mean to knock your point. I do think you have a valid point by saying that there is a generation that stays longer on jobs than we do, because we're now catching the stigma of if it's after 3 years and we haven't made this quote-unquote impact, then we're looking for the next best opportunity, or we're now putting more energy into our passion projects, as we've kind of talked before, than what our actual career is.
No, that's very valid. I was wondering, like, when it comes to people who are on their job a long time, have you ever had that manager or coworker who, like, they have so much energy and passion behind what they do that you can't even tell?
I don't even understand it.
Right, how much energy they have
Yeah.
towards
Right.
their job, right? But I mean,
Mhm.
isn't that like what we all should be striving for, though, with
Is
a
it?
job? Like,
I think so. We should feel very passionate about what we're doing. Sometimes, like what I mean is I don't understand where they get it from, because maybe we're
Yeah.
just in two different paths within that particular field or at that company. But as much as I can be annoyed by their passion, I do admire it,
yeah.
because if we don't have that, we're a lot more likely to leave.
Yeah, and I think it also gives us the outlook of what passion should look like in that particular career. Because for a lot of millennials, what we work in may not have been what we went to school for. So you have to kind of find that why of why do I show up? How did I get this job? Why should I be here any longer? And so some of that may stem from them kind of setting that tone and example of this is what passion could look like in this particular career.
But do we know what we want? Like, do we know what we want out of a job? I know a lot of it is like flexibility, employability, mobility, all the illities.
All the entities.
The environment, cooperative workspaces, working as a team. Like, are those things that you guys can identify with, or is it more of a I'm just kind of here doing it? Like, what is it?
I think it just depends. Like I say, for me, like I know what I'm personally passionate about, but it's hard to find a job that's gonna match the passion that I have for who I am and what I do. And so for me, I had to kind of create it in a sense. And by doing that, it may not be the ideal like job or industry that I've always wanted to be in, so to speak, but it aligns so well with who I am and what I want to do that it's like I figured out a way to make a lifestyle and a career and a company out of the things that I love to do. So I don't know how to really like define that. I don't know if we know what we want in a job, but I think when we find out who we are as a people or as a person, then you can align yourself with a company or a position or a job or something that fits with who you are as an individual. Because we're all individual people at the end of the day. Like we're all individual people working a job. Like I have this like, I just look at stuff different. So I like, you know, even like DoorDash, for instance, right? I've used it, and sometimes I'll be like, capitalism, man. Like it'll turn like anybody into anything. Like this person is a person, but you know they're spending their time delivering food to me. It's like they don't want to do this, but when you're going for that almighty dollar, like you'll turn into a delivery worker like real fast, you know. So I don't know.
Yeah. Do you know what you want?
No.
Brianna's the baby. She's like,
I'm still figuring it out. I know what my like ideal job is. I know that like I would want to work with kids. But at what capacity, I'm still figuring it out. Yeah. That young millennial in me, you know. I like working with kids on the educational standpoint. I think it's really cool. But there's some things that grind my gears about the education system that really hit a few heartstrings.
Yeah.
So one piece of advice that I give, especially when talking about the topic of how do I figure out if what I want to do is what I want to do, is what started working for me being brand new to the industry that I'm in is finding where I can place my passions in my actual job. So when I think about, I do enjoy public speaking, I do enjoy natural leadership of groups of people, then I started thinking, well, how do I implement that into my 9 to 5, so to call it. And so with that, just finding those different opportunities to say, I am passionate about this when I leave this place. So how do I do that when I'm at this place? And for a lot of people, they don't really look beyond how they can implement it. They're more so saying, I'm just ready to go. I'm just ready to go. Well, while you're here, what are you going to do? Especially if you got to be here. This is paying your bills. So,
and you know, like I feel you on that. And I feel like that a lot of people who are, you know, older than us, or not even necessarily older than us, but our seniors at work and in corporate environments or whatever, they have responsibility to be good managers and good leaders, because I know for me, I've had that same passion, right? But I've left places because of the leadership. If the leadership would have been better, and it's not knocking any individual place I've ever been, but I'm saying in general, from the landscape of the 9 years I've been working, like, you know, every place that I've left, it kind of was a leadership thing. And so I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you want good millennials or you want good people to stick around, then you got to reach back. And if I feel like, you know, maybe for you, as you know, said what you just said, maybe your manager currently, as I think you told me, does reach back and make an effort to even pull you to the side or just coach you up and help you along the way in your career. which makes you want to be there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was doing some research that was by Pepperdine, and they said the number one reason why millennials leave their job is because of their boss.
Wow.
The number one reason. So a lot of the time,
That's
Wow.
number one. Yeah.
yeah. And so a lot of the things we're looking for is if they're honest, if they have integrity, if they treat us with respect, if they're able to show us the big picture so that we understand our role within the organization,
That's
and
important.
if they give us opportunities to learn and grow and just contribute, in a meaningful way.
That's
Yeah.
fire.
So.
Yeah.
That's fire.
And that is too. I think also millennials, there's kind of this unwritten rule that when we look at corporate to certain degrees of industry, we say, well, that's going to limit my talents. That's going to limit my passions. And so to kind of go to your point of saying, well, are these opportunities here for me to grow? I will definitely say leaving the education field for myself and going now into financial services, that was my thing. I kind of felt limited that there was a cap in education. So now where I am now is like, well, I just had an interview today for another promotion. It's like that's happened 3 times just from being there in almost 2 years. Versus education, you kind of have a little bit more of a tenure, and a track record that builds you up to that next point.
More
So
bureaucratic.
yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, all right. So I want to switch gears as we grinded those gears. Switch gears. So, like, is it hard managing millennials though? And let's be honest, because like I know that for me, I don't think I'm that hard to manage. That's just me talking. But I will say from the flip side of us running this organization, which we've been running for a while, we've had to manage millennials, so to speak, as far as gathering groups and gathering different millennials from across the city and then managing our board and our teams and all that kind of stuff. I would say it's pretty difficult to manage millennials in the general landscape.
And I just think that's just because we're all competing with each other's schedules. And I just feel like, we put it down in our calendar. We say we're going to go there. And then that time comes around and you like, oh, well.
5 more minutes in bed.
And then by the time you actually do get up, the event is over.
It's over.
yeah.
So you said after you get up, the event is over? Is that what you
Yeah.
said?
But when you get out of bed, like, you like, okay, I'm going to get up. I'm going to get dressed or whatever. Just give me like 5 more minutes.
And I
on
know
the
that it
clock.
has to be frustrating when you're running a company and you got these people, or you're running a department and you got these people who, you already got this stigma that they're, what they call us, entitled.
So many things.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you're entitled.
Entitled is a big one, and
Yeah.
lazy.
I don't think we're entitled.
I think it's
Excellent.
so the definition of entitlement that I hear from or have heard from managers when it comes to millennials in particular is that we're just pretty distracted by a lot. So it's like when it comes down to like really having like our focus and saying like when you're here, be here.
True.
It's like we're kind of there physically,
But
but
we
our minds and
multitasking.
everything else is just kind of like,
For sure.
yeah.
But I mean, because think about it, right? You can go on your iPhone right now and see how many times you touch your phone today. Right? So
Ooh.
that's one thing. And then if you got a passion project,
Yeah.
now you have a valid reason to
Reason
touch
to-
your phone every
right.
day or whatever.
It's not like you just on social media writing a comment or nothing. Like you actually putting in work.
And
Yeah.
then we,
Yeah.
at that age where some of us are back in school or were in school while
Yeah.
we were at work. So you naturally on your phone because you like Instagram or whatever. Then you texting.
Yeah.
Then you got a passion project. Then you in school. Like,
Then you playing A-ball.
right. So it's, we pretty much, I agree. We definitely are distracted for sure.
That's
Yeah.
true.
And I guess I say that because I turn my phone off sometimes, as y'all know.
Yeah.
And I realize how much stuff I'll get done. I'll be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
when my phone on, it's like,
Right.
yeah.
So we might be distracted. I think that that's very valid. But some of the things I saw was that we need for the workplace to be a teamwork sort of culture, and we need to take advantage of our electronic literacy, and that we have to be in an environment where they're embracing diversity. So do we think that those things really matter, or is it like not so much?
I think a few of those factors may kind of play into what you do, right? So when it comes to diversity, I think when you look at diversity in the many categories that fall underneath it, there's a need for diversity to be more of a priority in some industries than it is another. And when I say diversity, this isn't, like your race or your gender or anything like that. Like I'm talking holistically, there may need to be different talents, different ages, you know, like a lot of those different things to really make your industry click in the way that it does. But just to kind of answer it directly, does diversity or the other things you listed play a heavy factor? It can. It definitely can. And I think from a day-to-day perspective, you start to find out which ones are a little bit more heavier on an impact for you than others.
Yeah, I think it depends on the person. I know for me, like it depends on what I'm doing, as you mentioned. Because like on one end, teamwork makes a big difference, and then on one end, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like
I'm one of those people who would probably prefer to work by myself, and that's just me. And I feel like there's a lot of millennials out there who would agree.
I think so, but I don't know if, I guess it is individual because that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it has to do with like across
the
industries,
board.
you know, like in some instances it's like I would rather just work alone. Like let me just handle this and be done.
Right.
But do we crave to like have a little bit of cooperative environments and whatnot?
I think it also depends on the lens that you put work on. Like what is work to you? Is work just a place where you get a paycheck? Then you pretty much probably don't want to be bothered with something.
True.
Yeah.
But if you look at work like I actually like to do this and I like being here after work hours and still working or whatever, then maybe.
But do we think that like the organization and our bosses, that's what plays a factor into that? Because a lot of the time, you know, say the review process, you know, if you aren't getting any feedback from your manager all year long, maybe we aren't as passionate about being engaged.
Yeah.
And I think it's about knowing that opportunity. So, you know, to your point, if my, you know, manager is engaging with me saying, hey, you know, my vision as a manager is to try and take this department or this company, et cetera, from point A to point B. And here's opportunity where your particular skill set can add value to, you know, it's like, and you have to think about like those buzzwords, right? Like my skill set, add value.
I add value.
Man,
Wow.
Yeah, like as a millennial, I'm like, yes, you know what I'm saying? So for that reason, if I'm being included, you know, in the master plan, so to say, I'm down for the ride because there's something at the end of that road for me. And if we don't see that as millennials, I think it's a lot of times harder to see the vision of why we're there. So now once that vision is blind after 2 or 3 years, I'm looking for the next opportunity.
And that goes back to what I was mentioning when I said that we have to understand the bigger picture of the organization, because then we understand our role. And if we have a boss that's kind of coaching us through the process, then that makes it a lot more easier for us to be engaged and motivated.
I agree.
Yeah, I think the more transparent an organization is, the easier it could be to work there. Because even if somebody tells us a vision that really doesn't make sense, we're still going to be like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Or if you don't understand your role in that vision, I think that's a big thing.
Oh, yeah. And I think we've all been there in some capacity, too.
Yeah.
Especially transitioning from one position to another, career to career. You kind of get there, and it's that, like, that fear of not knowing.
Yeah,
and
like,
you're
why
just
am I
like,
here?
why am I here? Why they got me doing this busy work when I'm supposed to be doing whatever else?
Yeah,
you know?
I think we all had that bit where we probably have went to a superior and said, you know, well, if you did it like this, it could work a little better.
Right.
And they're like, how dare you?
Yeah,
you
no.
know?
Oh yeah, that's been me, you know, that's kind of came back at me a couple times.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, this isn't
is
right
not-
because you kind of did it like this. And I'm like, okay, but mine is better. And then
She said
6
mine.
months later, they're like, so Dylan, remember when you had kind of formulated that project? Like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
I was right.
Right. Yeah.
So what you mean to say?
Yeah.
But
So-
do we know, like, what do we bring to the workplace? Like, we have, like, all of these expectations that, like, we want from it, but what do we feel like we're bringing?
I think a lot of things that we bring, and this isn't to really jump on this topic in too heavy manner, but a lot of what we're looked at for is our knowledge and experience of technology
There you
and how
go.
is it
I was gonna
integrated
say that.
into the workplace overall. Because I know when I spent time in the classroom, there was a need for technology there just to keep the attention of my kids. So, you know, for that reason, that's one thing that I think on the top 3 list of priorities that millennials bring. We're always, like, technology is always going to be on that list. But one thing a little bit more important than technology, in my opinion, is the balance between how do we multitask of the life outside of work and being at work, which could also go back to the point we were talking about managing us as millennials. It could be seen as difficult for a manager because if you see me on the phone, like on my work phone and also like texting while I'm on the phone, you may think I'm disengaged from my conversation on the phone,
Right.
when it could just be like me scrolling and I'm not really paying attention to what I'm scrolling because I'm on this conversation.
And I'm listening, but my hands are just doing something that they're used to.
Right.
I think if somebody was to ask, what do we bring? I think if I were, 40 plus, 50 plus employer, I'd probably say short-term value. Like I'd probably be like, 1 out of 7 might stick, but the six that come through probably gonna add a lot of value to my organization in a short window of time. But 1 might actually stick around for the long haul. That's how. I don't know, because I'm definitely one of the 6. Like I already know. So that's the way I look at it. But you brought up balance, so I wanted to ask, like, how do you guys balance your social life and your working professional life? Because I know that, and probably friends of mine who worked with me in the past can probably vouch that when it's time to go to lunch, Tony ain't going, and, and that's just me.
You're
I really
not
gotta.
going.
I'm not.
What you mean you're not going?
If it's time to go to lunch as a group, for like a coworker outing thing, I'm probably the one who's not gonna go.
Okay, that's me. That's me.
Number one, I'm very cheap. And so I'm not going to work and then go spend, X amount of my working time eating on it. So I don't know. That's weird to me. And then I'm just like, I'd rather just be here just grinding. So I don't.
So you going to work through lunch? No, I'm going to take
Oh,
my
no.
lunch.
I'm going to
Like,
take
I'm going to pack my lunch,
lunch.
but I'm still
But I'm
take
going
my
to take it
lunch.
totally different than going to spend it with a group of people
Oh,
talking
no.
about work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that can get very, very sticky, and depending on the industry that you're in, on how much time that you're spending on lunch talking about work. Because what I've noticed from just from the industry I'm in, that's a mental thing. Like when you get back to work and you've heard about Joe Blow and everybody else who's been doing whatever else at the job, that is like now you can't even see him as just a regular coworker. You got to think about
You
all
over
the
here.
gossip, for an hour.
Now I
at
gotta
lunch
Yeah.
block
that
you on
heard.
Instagram. I thought we was cool, but obviously we not.
Let's
Yeah.
talk about that. I was just about to ask about the social media thing
I'm
too.
not.
Like, do you follow your boss or your supervisor or your coworkers or your people up under you or your kids if you work in education? Like,
no.
what is that dynamic?
Let me tell
like?
you something. Like
Tell
my
us.
whole name
Tell
on
us.
Instagram is not my name because for that exact reason. Even my coworkers, like this one girl, like we follow each other, or whatever, but I'm blocking my story. Like I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just certain things. Like it's certain boundaries that I like to create, and everybody don't need to know everything.
And
They
that's
don't.
fair. That's fair.
They
feel
don't.
that.
I don't have one, so I'm not putting my 2 cents in on the conversation. But I'm happy to know how you guys manage that.
Oh, yeah, and you have to be able to manage it,
Yeah.
because there's certain times where your personal life, due to social media and what you put out there, comes into the office just from casual conversation. Where you come in, especially like on a Monday morning, everybody's like, "Oh, girl, I saw what you did this weekend."
That's not necessary.
And especially when you're in an office environment where it's an open floor, like we're not just in my office where the door is closed, where it's just us talking. We're in the middle of a floor where we don't know who can hear us saying what. And so if you don't know that difference, somebody who may be looking to promote you or say, "Man, you're a very great worker, but the only thing I ever hear you really discussing is your personal life, social media, et cetera, et cetera." So you have to really be careful with that. And I think as millennials, there's a lot of times that we may or even may not know what that balance looks like. And what I really find is that we kind of choose an extreme where we may go the route of saying, "I don't want to do any social media because that could affect my career," or we're so heavy in social media where we don't even see the impact that it's actually having on our career.
Yeah, I mean, I know like earlier on or even just previously, for me, like I would always feel like any coworker or whatever that followed me on social media and saw my personal life would look at me as a threat to either them or the company. That's just, I don't know why I felt like that, but like I always got something going on. Like,
Right.
I always have, like, from day one, day negative 50. Like I've always had 2 to 3 things going on. So my thing is like, get back to work and you're like, hey, I've heard this. Hey, I didn't know you were involved in such and such, such and such. And so it's like now you're wondering what I do with my time. Like if I'm not at work or I'm not at lunch with everybody, what does he do? It's just like I just distance myself from all of that because it's like I'm on a different grind, and I don't think we need to mix the two.
Yeah.
But when I leave this company, we can follow each other.
Right. We can be friends again.
I feel like once I leave the school system, then maybe some of my little kids, I'll let them. No,
probably not. Probably not. They too young.
Once they graduate high school.
There you go.
That sounds
Good
fair.
job.
That
Yes.
sounds fair. But to what you were saying about your boss, like maybe teeter-tottering on promoting just anyone, is that a fair expectation to?
So to some people, they look at you as an ambassador, and I'll say that when you consider whatever the position is, then you also have to say, well, this person and what they portray when they're away from here, does that affect how our company can grow? Does that affect how partnerships can come about because of said person? And so you really have to be careful with that, because even before social media became a big thing for a lot of people to use, you saw the impacts that it had in movies, where, movies were kind of like giving us a tip to say like, hey, you can be sitting down in an interview and somebody slides you a screenshot, and now all of a sudden you don't get that job.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do believe that what we're doing outside the workplace can also spill back into it. Now, it's up to the discretion of the manager on how much of an impact that has on them making a decision. But I think if you really take in your integrity and your personal brand of who do I show these people to be, at least between the hours of 9 and 5, then that could have some long-term, effects on you. Or even benefits, depending on, like Tony say, I grind when I leave here. Maybe your manager sees that and likes it.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe so. Either way, I don't need you. All right, so just kidding. So speaking of grinding and all that stuff, I wanted to make sure we spotlighted this week's local hero. There's a guy we saw in the news earlier named Dante Fisher, and he's doing some pretty cool stuff as far as the fact that he's potentially going to get drafted in the NFL. But let's just watch this story real quick, and then we want to have a little bit of a discussion.
Cool. People that I can play at the next level.
Ready, go.
Training for the NFL draft is a full-time job.
I get here in the morning, I come, I roll out, stretch. We go through our warm-up session, and we get into our functional training.
The 40 to the shuttle, 5, 10, 5. I mean, making sure that it's on point.
Turn left onto Chimney Rock Road.
But for Dante, it's just one of his 3 jobs.
It's tough, there's some days I'm just really worn out and I'm burned out, but, in my head, I just got to get it done. I got people to take care of.
And providing never became more important than when his biggest fan, his mother Yvonne, suffered a stroke 6 months ago.
Oh, yeah, she's on my mind all the time. It's just hard seeing somebody that's taking care of you for your whole life. That's just what keeps me going.
But despite working 2 jobs to provide for his mom and finding time to train, Dante is motivated to succeed.
Once I made it back and I was able to see her and, see that she was on her way back to getting to herself, that just brought something out of me, that dog, I just got to get it done.
He got the ability. He just got to put in the work and go execute. I believe in him. I believe in him.
And with every workout,
and so, when we talking about the grind and talking about millennials and all that kind of stuff, obviously he's a millennial. He went to Jackson State by way of Yates, in the tray. And so, sorry, Dylan. And so, I don't know. The whole, DoorDash and him working multiple jobs and grinding, to train to go to the NFL, talk about that different grind and doing it for your parents. I just feel like he was the perfect person to spotlight this week. What do y'all think?
Yeah, no doubt. And there's something about passion and grind, and sometimes you hear people replace grind with grit. And grit is having, that fuel for the grind, and that's just something that you almost can't train.
Like when he say he's doing it for his mom though, how does that make y'all feel from a personal and parenting standpoint? My parents have had health issues before, and it's like a switch hits that you just start thinking different.
Yeah,
know?
like you just know you have to do whatever you have to do to make ends meet for your parents, because you know they would do anything for you.
Yeah.
I know that
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah, for sure. My mom is like a force on her own, though. So I feel like if anything I do now, I have to like pay homage to her because she's had several businesses and just will work full time and is taking care of me and my sister. And she just does everything. So I don't have to pay anything back to her, but I have to really pay it forward and let her know that, like, okay, I kind of soaked up a lot of the stuff he's doing. I'm not sitting on my butt, because I feel like that's what a lot of millennials can do. Like, you have someone who really paved the way, so it's like, well, I could chill, but it's like, you know, really trying to pay it forward in that way. So I have to stay on mine because of that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times you carry that name, you know, and so you're the representation of what your parents, you know, support, what they put out to the world, essentially. So, you know, kind of, you know, you want to pay that forward and say, well, if I'm going to represent this name, like, what am I, you know, going to leave to my legacy, you know? And I think that's something that we really have to consider and think about, because our parents have done a lot, you know, in different capacities, and whether that's mom, dad, both, etc., you know, they've been here, like, they gave us life. And so in order to just live through the motion, nah, man, you gotta get up and go get it. Like we say, secure the bag.
do you feel like that they love, you know, in a general standpoint, our parents loved us so much that they spoiled us, and then it also led to this entitlement that the world thinks millennials have, or what?
I don't know that it more so had a impact on us as a generation. I think is, you know, kind of maybe the cloth that you're cut from that may kind of give you those different views in the world, so to say. But I do believe that to a certain degree, you just, like, I just got to go back to it. You just got to go grind, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
You know, I wonder if, like, you know, they say that parents get what they give when they're older. They get whatever they gave to their kids back. So as our parents begin to age, and you see a story like Dante's and taking care of his mom, you know, maybe that extra love that millennials got will actually end up paying it forward for the parents that we have as they get ready to age. Like, maybe we as millennials will take care of our parents. Yeah.
Be able to give that love back to our parents. I would hope so.
yeah.
I mean, my mom definitely deserves it. So at the end of the day, I would hope that that's the train we're going on.
I hope my mom can accept it.
Yeah.
She's been doing it so much and been so independent for so long. I don't even think she would be, like, receptive. So I feel like I would really have to put that on her. But, you know, just through that, it just would make me have to work so much harder. Like, I have to show her, like, okay, you had all these business. Like, this is why I have. So I feel like I would have to really.
Yeah.
What's
And
that?
it reaches a point, because, I mean, hence the name Knockin on 30. Like, we're all there, you know, and for some of our parents, they might be at that point where it's time to kind of start, you know, turning the table, so to say, because as they get older, we're also getting older. And so you have to consider, like, at some point, if they either can't take care of themselves, whether it be physically, you know, financially, when do we kind of start to step up to start paying forward, you know, the rest of their life as well as ours? And I think that once you get to that point of saying, like, I'm at an age where I need my kid more than my kid needs me, then that's whenever the tables really start to turn.
Yeah. I think one thing we can all agree on is that Dante is doing some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
Shout out to him. Definitely
Yes.
going to be watching to see if he gets drafted, keeping our fingers crossed. So, you know, as we get ready to close the show out, you know, we just want to give a little extra love to our parents.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no
as
doubt.
we get ready to close
No
it
doubt.
out. So if your mom and your dad's still in your life, call them right now. If
Yeah.
you watching this or you
Right.
listening, call them, text them, tell them you love them.
Yes,
It could
please
always
tell
be
them you
worse.
love
And you
them.
appreciate them.
Yes.
Yes. So
Thank 'em.
anyway, that's the Millennial Community. We're wrapping up. Just want to tell everybody to continue to follow us at the Millennial Community. You can check us out online, www.themillennialcommunity.com. You can follow our podcast, Knockin' on 30, at iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and anywhere else that you find podcasts. Google Play, everywhere in between. We everywhere, okay? Just literally Google. We're the only Knockin' on 30 podcast that exists. We checked.
Right. Only one in the game.
Because we're millennials. We checked.
We did. Verified.
And own the real estate, baby.
All right, y'all. Peace out. Have a good one. We love y'all. Take care.